Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Indian authorities arrest at least 11 people from 4 states in a major crackdown on an alleged spy network linked to Pakistan's ISI. Officials say that they were recruited using honey traps, cash incentives, and false promises. The European Union leaders gather in London for a landmark EU-UK summit aimed at resetting ties 5 years after Brexit. Both sides have reached deals on defence, fisheries and youth mobility after the talks. At least 13 killed in a suicide blast at an army recruitment centre in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. The suspected Al-Shabaab terrorists targeted young recruits lined up outside a military base. A car bomb explosion near a police station in eastern Syria's Deir ez-Zor city kills 3 police officers. A curfew has been imposed as authorities investigate the attack. No group has claimed responsibility yet. And a landslide near a gold mine in Indonesia's eastern Papua region kills at least 6. Rescuers are searching for over a dozen people who are missing after the incident. Hello and welcome. We begin with South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa is heading to the United States with a key meeting planned with President Donald Trump later this week. His mission is to counter false claims about South Africa, spread by Trump and his ally Elon Musk. But just before the visit, Musk's own AI chatbot has joined the debate, fact-checking misleading claims about Pretoria. Over the weekend, Elon Musk shared a post on his social media platform X. He shared a message allegedly from a friend in South Africa, claiming that the country, particularly Johannesburg, is in total disarray. The post asserted that no traffic lights function in the city and that a loaf of bread costs $50. It also accused black South Africans of corruption and violent crime, claims that sparked widespread outrage. In response, several users posted real-time photos and videos showing functional traffic signals and normal daily life. Interestingly, joining the fact-checking effort was Musk's own AI chatbot, Grok. Now, the bot contradicted the claims, stating that the average price of a loaf of bread in South Africa ranges from just $0.383 to $0.98. Now, Grok also found no credible evidence to support the widespread corruption claims made in the viral post. Now, this isn't the first time that Musk and Grok have faced controversy over South Africa. Earlier, Grok was criticized for bringing up claims of white genocide in unrelated conversations. Musk's company later attributed this issue as an unauthorized modification by an employee. Musk, who was born in South Africa, has repeatedly claimed that a white genocide is taking place there. These claims have been dismissed strongly by the South African government. Musk is also believed to be influencing President Trump, who has taken several tough measures against South Africa. Now, Trump has accused the South African government of land confiscation. In response, he cut aid, expelled the South African ambassador, and rolled out an asylum plan for white South Africans, granting them refugee status in the United States. The first group of around 50 South Africans has already arrived in the US. Trump has defended the move, insisting it's not based on race and that he would extend the same protection to black South Africans if they faced similar conditions.
I think that from all evidence, the farmers in South Africa are being treated brutally, and it's been reported and nobody wants to cover it, but they happen to be white, and if they were black, I'd do the exact same thing. And we treat people very well when we see there's a genocide going on. So if it's a genocide, that's terrible, and I happen to believe it could very well be. South Africa's out of control, and it's been out of control for a long time, and the media doesn't report it. And I'm not looking for reporting, because believe me, it's easier for me not to do anything. It's a lot easier because I don't get nasty questions like that. But the fact is that we're about saving lives.
Immigration remains a cornerstone of Trump's agenda. While he has blocked asylum for people from other war-torn regions, his administration has fast-tracked applications from white South Africans. The South African government has criticized the criteria, insisting that white South Africans do not face systemic discrimination and do not qualify for refugee status. President Ramaphosa is expected to meet Trump on Wednesday. The high-stakes talks come after months of escalating tensions between the two countries. Will Ramaphosa counter Trump's claims at the White House? And will this high-stakes meeting further widen the rift between South Africa and the United States? Or will it bring it to a halt? Now, for more on this, we have with us Patrick Bond, who is a political economist, live from Johannesburg. Thank you for being with us, Patrick.
It's great to be with you, Alyson. Thanks.
Now, how do the comments from influential figures like Elon Musk and President Trump shape international perceptions of South Africa? And what are the potential diplomatic consequences?
You know, it's so interesting because they are really, I think, deserving the status of laughingstock. And President Trump makes so many misstatements, but he's done this again and again, just as on other areas that South Africa is involved with, such as the BRICS. There's a real passion there to inflame racial tensions. And if you ask Grok.com whether its owner, Elon Musk, who was born in Pretoria and raised to some extent here in Johannesburg, and Trump and their continual charge of an Afrikaner genocide. This is what you get if you ask Grok.com. Is there an Afrikaner genocide? Quote, in sum, there is no reliable data or authoritative source supporting the existence of a genocide against Afrikaners. The narrative is largely driven by fringe groups and lacks substantiation, end quote. So what we're really seeing is this extraordinary divergence between rhetoric and reality, and coming now, just a day and a half before Trump and President Ramaphosa are due to meet in Washington. It's more like a kind of pressure tactic to create a frisson, and maybe that will lead, as you've hinted, to President Ramaphosa's cool, calm, sophisticated demeanor, a world-class negotiator for sure, calming down the debate and transcending this racial myth so that they can get into the substantive issues. Or it might be, if Trump is in a different mood, it might be a site where Ramaphosa would have to accuse back that the U.S. is a site of racial tension, where the shooting of black people by police remains a crisis. It was the crisis that caused Black Lives Matter and massive protests in the middle of COVID in 2020, and it hasn't been solved.
Right. And given the backlash against Musk's claims and Grok's contradictory response, how should South African officials and citizens respond to this misinformation from such high-profile voices?
Well, around the world, the response to what Elon Musk has done, not just rhetorically, but of course he's been in charge of cutting budgets, and U.S. AIDS cuts, about $64 billion worth, include our South African AIDS program. That's about 18% of the AIDS spending, plus the climate financing. There's over $1 billion in loans that have been cut. And then you have humanitarian aid in Africa, like food aid to Sudan. All of these cuts, plus withdrawing from the World Health Organization, withdrawing from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, creating chaos in world trade and financial markets. To me, these do represent a site where South Africans can take the lead. They took the lead, the government, in accusing Israel of genocide in about a year and a half or so ago, in December 2023. And that's one of the sticking points, obviously. But could South Africa do the same, hosting the G20, potentially tabling the idea that maybe Donald Trump should be voted off the island? There should be a G19 in 2026, not hosted by Trump, maybe by Mexico, by Claudia Sheinbaum. That would be the fighting back, let's say, counterpoints that I think a bully like Trump needs to hear.
Right. And Trump's renewed defense of refugee status for white South Africans reignites an old debate. How might such statements affect racial discourse and bilateral relations between the US and South Africa? You have touched on some of the points there.
Well, I think the main thing about those 59 Afrikaners who have been accepted as the first tranche of a refugee program is that increasingly the media will be asking, are you really genuine farmers under threat of genocide? Now, many have been. Obviously, there are instances of rural crime. They're not nearly as high as they are in the city, and the rate at which Afrikaners are victimized is much lower than the general population. All the statistics suggest that. So it is, let's say, to some extent, a relief that even two of the major institutions that promote the let's say, allegation that Afrikaners are discriminated against, that is Afriforum and Solidarity, they reject the white genocide myth. But then the question is whether the little outpost of Orania, which is where Afrikaners have set up their own separate society, or affirmative action. And again, for Elon Musk, this is crucial. He wants Starlink to operate here. That's an internet satellite service. But he doesn't want the 30% Black partnership that these regulations of investment equity require. Now, what will President Ramaphosa do to say, okay, it's just a myth? Your Grok will tell you that. And maybe we will at some point relax our investment regulations and relook at land reform. There hasn't been very much. But right now, put those issues aside and talk trade. And I think that's where Ramaphosa will probably have to be his most persuasive. And Trump knows that the trade, let's say, getting rid of AGOA, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, the concessions that give you a zero tariff, and having 25% on cars and steel and aluminium from South Africa, those will be painful for Ramaphosa, because his friends are in some of the biggest companies that are most adversely affected if those tariffs remain.
Thank you, Patrick, for being with us. As always, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And shifting focus to Libya, where deadly clashes and escalating militia violence have triggered widespread calls for Prime Minister to resign. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Tripoli over the weekend. They gathered at Martyrs Square before marching to the Premier's office, demanding that Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh resignation. Now, the government confirmed one security officer was killed while guarding the premises.
Down with the government of collaborators, the government of normalization. With God's help, we will not leave the square and will continue the civil disobedience until Dbeibeh falls. This demonstration is to denounce the situation we are in, which my country and its citizens are suffering from: repression, wars, and a lack of respect for the Libyan citizen. The situation is no longer bearable enough.
The protests have also divided the government. At least 3 ministers have resigned in solidarity. And several municipal councils in western Libya are also backing the call for Dbeibeh to step down. Now, the unrest follows days of violent clashes between rival armed groups, leaving at least 8 dead, including the notorious militia leader Abdul Ghani Kitli. Fighting continued despite a ceasefire announcement. Now, the clashes involved pro- and anti-government militias. However, pro-government groups seem to have gained an upper hand, signaling a possible power shift that may strengthen Dbeibeh's grip on Tripoli. Over the weekend, Dbeibeh met with tribal leaders in his first public appearance since the violence erupted last week. He urged them to support state efforts to avoid a return to chaos and militia rule.
We will welcome all those who choose to stand with the state. We will sideline those who resort to blackmail and corruption. Our goal is a Libya free of militias and corruption. Militias had grown excessively to the point of controlling the entire political, financial, economic, and even social landscape.
Libya has been in turmoil since the 2011 NATO-backed uprising that ousted the dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Since 2014, it has been split, with General Khalifa Haftar controlling the east and the UN-recognized Government of National Unity, led by Dbeibeh, based in the west. Under a UN-backed roadmap, Libya was supposed to hold elections in 2021, but the vote was postponed and Dbeibeh has remained in power. Tripoli remains deeply fractured, with militias vying for control across the capital. As the situation remains tense, Turkey, a key ally of Dbeibeh, has evacuated 82 citizens. The United Nations continues to raise alarms over Libya's fragile stability. So political uncertainty continues to loom large over Libya. Pressure on Prime Minister Dbeibeh is mounting. With ministers quitting and militias rearming, the road to stability remains uncertain. And now shifting focus to West Africa, where the United States is significantly bolstering its military partnership with Ivory Coast as a part of a strategic recalibration of its presence in West Africa. Now, this development comes in the wake of the U.S. military withdrawal from Niger and amidst growing instability across the Sahel region. Reports suggest that discussions are underway for the potential establishment of a U.S. drone base in Ivory Coast's Abidjan city. With its growing collaboration with the U.S., Ivory Coast is poised to play an increasingly vital role in countering jihadist threats, maritime piracy, and cross-border smuggling across the Sahel and the Gulf of Guinea. Now, the instability in neighboring countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger has also prompted the U.S. to solidify its ties with West Africa. This deepening partnership between United States and Ivory Coast also carries geopolitical weight. It is being seen as a part of Washington's broader strategy to counterbalance the increasing influence of Moscow and Beijing in the region. On the 24th of April, the U.S. Marine Corps General Michael Langley, who is the commander of the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, visited the Ivory Coast, and he attended the opening ceremony of Flintlock 2025, which is the command's annual multinational special operations exercise held in Jacquesville. During his visit, General Langley, along with the U.S. Ambassador Jessica Davis, held crucial meetings with the Ivorian Minister of Defense, Tene Birima Katara, and the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Lassina Doumbia. Now, discussions centered on strengthening bilateral cooperation to effectively address transnational threats, with a clear emphasis on Ivory Coast's expanding role as a leader in regional security. Talks also included the potential establishment of a U.S. drone base within the Ivory Coast. While no final decision on constructing a permanent base has been made, high-level consultations are actively ongoing regarding the expansion of U.S. operations. While earlier reports suggested planning of a base near ODN, AFRICOM's West Africa coordinator, Kenneth Ekman, clarified last year that no specific location has been finalized. However, he did indicate that regions near the borders with Mali and Burkina Faso are under serious consideration due to the elevated threat from jihadist groups operating in those areas. Now, the deepening military partnership between the US and the Ivory Coast marks a significant shift in Washington's approach to security in West Africa. The potential establishment of a US drone base underscores the growing importance of Ivory Coast as a key player in a complex and evolving regional security landscape. And shifting focus to the East African nation of Tanzania, from where Kenyan lawyer and presidential candidate Martha Karua has been deported. Now, Karua was in Tanzania to defend opposition leader Tundu Lissu, facing treason charges. The vocal critic of the alleged backsliding democracy in Eastern Africa, Karua said that she was stopped at the Dar es Salaam airport with her group and was then put on a flight out the same day. She also posted a video of her waiting at the airport, saying that she was awaiting deportation after retrieving bags. The Kenyan leader lashed out at the Tanzanian government for her expulsion. Now, the former justice minister said that her deportation was a sign that Tanzanian authorities would not give a fair trial to Chadema party leader Lissu. She accused President Samia Suluhu Hassan's party of subverting the law to lock up the main contenders ahead of the October election. Now, Karua's People's Liberation Party, or the PLP, said that she was subjected to hours of unwarranted interrogation before her deportation. This, as the Tanzanian opposition leader was due to face a trial today. Now, he cannot seek bail as he faces treason charges, for which the maximum punishment is a death sentence. Tundu Lissu was arrested last month for holding a rally with the slogan, "No reforms, no election." He seeks sweeping changes in the electoral system, claiming that the current laws do not allow free and fair elections. His Chadema party has been barred from contesting the upcoming polls as it refused to sign a code of conduct. Chadema sees the document as a ploy to contain the opposition. But Lissu is not the only opposition leader of a neighboring country who Karua has been representing. She represents Ugandan leader Kizza Besigye as well. Now, he also faces treason charges. The former military officer was kidnapped in Kenya last year and taken back to his home country for a trial. Uganda will hold elections in January. The country's President Yoweri Museveni's son, the Ugandan Army Chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has threatened voters. In a stern warning, he asked non-supporters to be very careful, adding that traitors would be deported in public view. Karua has condemned such abductions, arbitrary arrests, and extrajudicial killings as she fights for political victims in East African nations. She is preparing to run for the 2027 Kenya presidential election and formed her own party in February of this year to fight in the polls. She faces competition from several opposition leaders, all of whom are hoping to take on President William Ruto. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.